Okay, breaking news coming in the last couple of minutes or so, and it's the news that we didn't want to hear. It's the sad news, it's the tragic news, it's the news that we hoped wouldn't happen, but it has. And Scott Hall, two-time WWE Hall of Famer, aka Ramon, has sadly passed away at the age of 63 years old. Now, we spoke about this earlier today. It's been widely circulating on social media, and it was confirmed by all of his close friends and family members that Scott Hall had suffered 3 heart attacks following surgery to repair a broken hip. He was having hip replacement surgery, and a blood clot had got loose, and he'd suffered 3 heart attacks, and he had to be placed on life support. Now, obviously, hearing that news, it was horrific and horrible, and everyone knew that this was not good at all. Kevin Nash had confirmed Monday morning, his longtime best friend, tag team partner, confidant, member of the Clique, that Hall would indeed be taken off life support once his family had congregated around him. That happened earlier today, and it was reported by Dave Meltzer and TMZ that Hall had been taken off of life support, but his heart was still beating and he was fighting for his life, essentially. Sean Waltman, also known as X-Pac, confirmed as much. But as Monday Night Raw was just coming on the air, about 15 minutes or so at the time of recording, WWE posted up the following in memoriam graphic, which you can see right there, that confirmed that, sadly, unfortunately, Scott Hall has passed away at the age of 63 years old. And it's just, like I said, I think that this has been a really horrible 24, 48 hours for everyone, obviously, and you'd kind of just hoped that some kind of miracle in this situation was going to happen, and there was almost this degree of hope, I suppose, that when he did come off the life support, that, you know, it wasn't immediate and maybe something was amazing is going to happen, but unfortunately it hasn't. And now it's about obviously mourning him and also celebrating him. You know, Scott Hall, as I spoke about earlier today, was not a perfect man, and I don't think he would even profess himself to be. And that's one of the things I felt that made him really endearing. I mean, the biggest takeaway, and I've seen this so much on social media over the course of the last 48 hours, is that for someone growing up like myself or like anyone that was a pro wrestling fan, I feel like if you were a kid and you were watching pro wrestling at any time, it doesn't even matter, because Scott Hall he went through generations. Everyone wanted to be Scott Hall because he was just so cool. I defy anyone that's ever seen a Scott Hall segment, let alone a match, a segment, not to have said "Hey yo" to their friends or "Hey yo" the next day, because they wanted to be Scott Hall, because he was cool. Whether he was being Razor Ramon, whether he was being himself, whether he was in the NWO, whether he was doing whatever, Scott Hall, Razor Ramon was cool. And he was good. And yeah, he never won the world championship, but if you're going to have that conversation about the greatest pro wrestler of all time to never hold the WWE championship or the WCW championship, Scott Hall, he's right in that conversation. He truly is. And for a guy that didn't hold a world championship, and frankly, in all of the interviews, if you go see, didn't care to hold the world championship. He didn't. For a guy who didn't hold a world championship, man, did he change the business. And in my opinion, for the better. You know, when he left WWE in 1996 and he jumped, he said, you know, he wanted to stay, but it was a case of money. It was a case of, you know, time on the road, and he wanted to be close to his family and he wanted to get paid for what he was good at. And with him and Kevin Nash going over to WCW, yeah, they had Hulk Hogan at the time, and yes, the Monday Night Wars was tit for tat and all that kind of stuff. But the outsiders, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, they changed the face of pro wrestling because they were over. They were cool. And Scott Hall starts that. Not in just the sense of walking out of the stands on Nitro and the people in the ring who are fighting then leave because they're supposed to leave. And Scott Hall looks into the camera and says, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. Even before that, he's the first guy to be leaving WWE. And Kevin Nash follows him. And because they were so cool and because they were so over, Hulk Hogan said, I'm not leaving without getting on that money train. And the NWO's born, and boom. You get this explosion of pro wrestling back in the 90s again to new heights that we never imagined. And people can talk about the Attitude Era and people can talk about all that kind of stuff, but it starts with the NWO. And that's what Scott Hall did. And that is after WrestleMania 10. That's after arguably the greatest ladder match of all time, the match that revolutionized the ladder match. And that's after the segment, the match, the storyline with the 1-2-3 Kid on Monday Night Raw, the first real big angle in Monday Night Raw history. The first big upset in Monday Night Raw history. At the time, Scott Hall was a made man. Razor Ramon was a made man. And he had this guy that nobody really knew. I mean, people knew who the Lightning Kid was if they were a fan of Japan and all that kind of stuff. But it was the 1-2-3 Kid, and he was tiny. I think he was just called the Kid at the time, right? Moonsault, beats him 1-2-3, and it's a slow babyface turn and all that kind of stuff. It's just Scott Hall's mark on the pro wrestling industry is unparalleled if you think about it. For a guy, like I said, every other person that left a big mark, an indelible mark on pro wrestling was a world champion at some point. The fact that Scott Hall didn't need to be world champion just speaks volume. And as I mentioned, if you're a fan of pro wrestling, and you were a fan of pro wrestling when you were a kid, every single person, if you watched a Scott Hall interview, if you watched a Scott Hall segments, if you watched him do a survey, if you watched him cut a promo, if you watched him do the surf walk or the cha-cha-cha and all that kind of stuff, you wanted to be Scott Hall. I know I did. And like I said, I know that he'll be remembered, just for his faults and his demons, just as much as his contributions to the pro wrestling business. But I don't think you can ignore them either, because I think it paints a perfect picture of someone that was not perfect. And I think Kevin Nash's it almost felt somewhat of like a eulogy or a goodbye note when he was, talking about his life support being turned off earlier today. And he was saying that Scott Hall had said before that he felt like, he wasn't worthy of the afterlife. And as Kevin Nash said, nobody's perfect. Nobody is perfect. And the fact that he went to those depths of despair and people wrote him off a long time ago. People thought this day was coming a long, long time ago. And the fact that, with the help of DDP and the accountability crib, he managed to turn his life around and get back on, a flat footing and have another go at life, have a second chance or a third chance or whatever many chance it was. And, just remind people of who Scott Hall was. The last bump he took on WWE television was at WrestleMania. At WrestleMania 31, the NWO versus DX. Did it come 20 years too late? Absolutely. But on the outside of the ring, Scott Hall took a back body drop. And again, I mean, even in this is how much of a big Scott Hall fan I was. Even in the days where he was in TNA, and he wasn't the Scott Hall that we knew and loved, and he was obviously struggling with a multitude of issues personally and substance abuse issues, and he was not in the best shape anymore, but he was still, even then, he was still cool. And at the time, I was obsessed. I was watching The Last Call with Scott Hall on YouTube, his YouTube videos, or when he'd sit in a room with Sean Waltman or whoever it may be, Larry Zbyszko, and they'd watch just old matches and talk. And it was just awesome. It was absolutely awesome. And it's just so sad. It's so sad. And it sucks that, we have to have these conversations about how important these people were to the pro wrestling industry once they've passed and the mark they've left once they've passed. But he, like I said, he is just his mark on the industry will never be forgotten. Absolutely never, ever be forgotten. And again, I think he's such a unique case. I really do. I think he's a unique case. And I think that, again, he will be absolutely sorely missed. And I think that people need to, John Alba said it best. I can see a tweet in front of me right now as I'm recording this. And again, I'm almost struggling for words because I am shocked. I am, even though that we kind of knew this was coming, I am shocked. But John Alba has said it best in this tweet. He said, quotes, "Scott Hall's death is tragic, but his redemption story is his defining legacy. This story could have ended more than a decade ago, but with the right people around him, he didn't let it. That's badass. That's the bad guy." And I think back to his Hall of Fame speech, one of the best Hall of Fame speeches ever, frankly, which was at WrestleMania 30 weekend rather in 2014 in New Orleans. And it's that quote at the end, isn't it? You know, hard work pays off, dreams come true, bad times don't last, but bad guys do. And even then he's cool. Even then he came out and he was in a white tux, and it's just, you know, it's such a shame. It really is. And 63 years old in this day and age really is no age, and it's incredibly sad. I mean, we're seeing all of these stories about him now coming out of good things he did for people throughout his career, whether it be Chris Jericho putting him over when he wasn't supposed to on Nitro, or you know, coming up to, you know, local indie wrestlers at events throughout the decades and paying for their meals or paying for their transit or paying forever for whatever it may be, and just saying, this is what people did to me, and I hope you pay it back. WWE, as I'm recording this right now, has also just released a statement saying, quotes, WWE is saddened to learn that two-time WWE Hall of Famer Scott Hall has passed away. A hugely influential superstar, Hall began his career in 1984, performing with various organizations across the country before joining World Championship Wrestling in 1991 as the Diamond Stud. In 1992, Hall signed with WWE and introduced fans all over the world to the character of Razor Ramon, becoming a four-time Intercontinental Champion and one of the most enduring personas of WWE's new generation. He participated in memorable rivalries against Kevin Nash, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and countless others, with his two ladder matches against Michaels at WrestleMania 10 and SummerSlam 1995, both considered all-time classics by fans and industry insiders alike. In 1996, Hall rejoined World Championship Wrestling and joined Kevin Nash and Hulk Hogan as the founding members of the NWO, revolutionizing the sports entertainment industry and ushering in the Monday Night Wars. After retiring from the ring, Hall capped off a one-of-a-kind career by being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame as Razor Ramon in 2014 and again as a member of the NWO in 2020. WWE extends its condolences to Hall's family, friends, and fans. And again, they just going through his career. We will do another video, unfortunately, as we always do in these situations, where we'll talk about and share some of the pro wrestling industry's reaction, because I'm just seeing in the last couple of seconds there is so much outpouring of love and support to Hall and his family and his friends and his loved ones, and there'll be so much to talk about. But even then, like they're saying, you know, and it's difficult to almost just skate over, isn't it? You know, the two ladder matches, WrestleMania 10, SummerSlam 1995, and Border Cats wasn't even their best one. Their best one were on house shows. And people forget, because of the Shawn Michaels performance in that first one, Razor Ramon won that one. The iconic image, yes, is Shawn Michaels doing the splash, but also it's Razor Ramon holding the two Intercontinental Championships. Of course, Shawn Michaels won the next one at SummerSlam in 1995. I think going back to, you know, Razor Ramon's career, I think he only had, I want to say, maybe 3 or 4 World Championship matches. One was Bret Hart, Royal Rumble 1993. I think he faced Goldberg, I want to say, in a, you know, it might have been a ladder match or something of that of nature in WCW, maybe in 99, 98. I might have been Sting. I forget, but he only had very, very, very few matches for the World Championship, and he didn't need to. He didn't need to, because he was Scott Hall, like he said. You know, he was multiple-time Intercontinental Champion, and that was at the time where that bout really meant something. It was the workers' bout, and Scott Hall, like many people say, is one of the most underrated workers of all time. You know, if you talk to anyone, whether it's people like, you know, Kevin Nash, they'll say, Kevin Nash, how did you learn to work? Scott Hall. Sean Waltman, how did you get, you know, really, really good in the ring? Obviously, he had a great, you know, upbringing with Boris Malenko and all that, goes to Scott Hall. Shawn Michaels, they would say Scott Hall's a great worker. And it's just incredibly sad. It's incredibly sad that, unfortunately, after saying hello to the bad guy for years, we now have to say goodbye to the bad guy. Scott Hall, you'll be forever missed. Rest in peace.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.